Yes, so just touching upon a few lines which were very, very relevant. All these lines are relevant. Some resonate more, and some a little, more. So, a power of seeing silence filled his limbs. This is a very, very empowering line, very empowering. And I think more often what happens is that we go through many, many lines, and uh, we forget, right? So we forget, we go over them like we have gone over 100, 200, 400 lines, and we keep on forgetting. So if even one line can become a mantra for us, that is just enough. That is just enough. So uh, it's not quantity that matters, it's the what's the richness and depth of the line. The line here where it says that his center was no more in earthly mind, a power of seeing silence filled his limbs. Now this is, I considered it very, very relevant, especially for me, because if we again and again we know ourselves as this witnessing presence, that this seeing silence that makes each and every movement of the body and thought and feeling possible, then it's something different. We experience that difference in consciousness. And when we are identified truly, completely with the thoughts and feelings and images and conceptions about myself, then what happens to us, that also we know, right? So a power of seeing silence filled his limbs. So the it's as if that witnessing presence, the consciousness of that presence, is activated even in the physical form, the body, filled his limbs. And then the other lines that I wanted to reiterate again. He neared the still consciousness sustaining all that appears to be moving in the world. What is that which is sustaining all that movement? That is what he neared. He neared the still consciousness sustaining all. It is again, we were reading in prayers and meditations by the mother that the river bed, how the river bed supports the flow of the river. Without the river bed, there would be no flow of the river possible. But we completely ignore uh, looking at the bed, right? Or seeing or understanding its relevance. So the immovable is the base of all the movement. The still is the base of all the movement and the appearances and non-appearances in life. This is what he came close to. The voice that only by speech can move the mind became a silent knowledge in the soul. Now, it's not a knowledge which has to just go about and talk, 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 talk. It's just a silent knowledge. Knowledge. I know. There is a deep embedding of this I know. It's not something coming out of arrogance. There's just pure, direct knowing through that silence. Yes, and what came to pause in this silence and peace? All that what Sambha was reading, a pause in the joy and anguish of search. So human life mostly is just anguished by the pain and the joy of this seeking, the struggle that we are feeling incomplete. And there is this struggle to complete ourselves, seeking progression. So there is also a pain and anguish in that struggle, and yet there is also a joy in that struggle. Because when we, cross thresholds, when we expand our consciousness, there is also a joy that we experience. That we are not what we were 5 or 10 years ago, right? We have changed, something has expanded. So that is the joy and anguish. And all that came to an end. All that here, a vast unanimity ended life's debate. Everything became unanimous here. Everything is one. It's like in alignment with each other. It's just absolute silence. So all these, the last paragraph, the long one in pink, all that is struggling and confusing and toiling, almost laboring for to be born, all that finds rest and peace here. And the last line that we read, his soul stood free, a witness and a king. Now, more often in our life, we don't find ourselves as free. You know, at most we may think that I am free, and yet we are tied to our thoughts, right? We are tied to our mental concepts and images. We are tied to my view of what is truth. We are tied to my view of life, how life should be lived. So we may think that we are free, but we are not. We are tied to our feelings, patterns, behaviors, the body, knowing ourselves as the body, knowing ourselves as this mind. But now Ashwapati, as he got in touch with this vast source of all that is, he knew himself to be free. And this is not a philosophy, this is lived experience of Sri Aurobindo, and hence it is a possibility for each one of us. That is what Sri Aurobindo and Mother have shown. They have shown the path. Once the path is shown, and we see that as a human being, if one is able to stand free, a witness and a king, then each other human being has the possibility that yes, this can happen for each one of us. This is our birthright, right? To be free, to be expanded in our consciousness more and more, more and more, more and more, because there is no end to it. And only knowing ourselves as this source, knowing ourselves not in theory, experiencing it for ourselves and making it, seeing its manifestation in our day to day life, then only transformation can happen. His soul stood free, a witness and a king. So this is where we last stopped, and we'll begin now the newer lines, and again very beautiful lines which are to come today. Yeah. Yeah, just a second, let me read your comment, what you're saying. Yeah, Taru is saying a relation between witness and a king, as if you are a witness, you are almost like a king, seeing things from a throne. Exactly, exactly. Just watching things, and also like a huge perspective, like you get a larger perspective, not looking at it through the mind's binoculars, but looking at really, as you said, from a higher seat. Yes. And not a doer. Yes, yes. The supervisor almost. Yeah. Seeing things. Yeah. From a throne.
Yeah, and also if you go to that Book of Divine Mother, no,
Yeah.
it's page number 316 again.
Mm.
The ending, that line is, his soul was freed and given to her alone. Again, the same thing actually.
Beautiful.
First,
Beautiful.
he stood as a witness. Now only I can correlate this now when you are telling actually.
Yeah.
He
Beautiful.
stood as a witness and then he surrendered to
Beautiful.
divine mother. Yeah,
Beautiful.
his soul was freed and given to her alone. So it is in page number
Wow.
316,
Wow.
316. Yeah,
Yes. Yes. Very related. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. This whenever we talk about consciousness, force comes along. We in Hindi we may call it Chit Shakti. So Chit is the consciousness and Shakti is the force. So they both are together, just like we talk about Shiva Shakti being together, right? So as Chitra ji had shared, once the consciousness is like expanded, it is the work of Divine Mother now. It and so far also has been propelled by the Divine Mother. So as you are saying that he now offered him to the mother, offered the king, offered the witness to the mother, and that is how mother takes over and guides the life and runs the life, right? So that is really amazingly beautiful. One can just revel in those lines. Yeah, beautiful. So we'll come to we I think we'll touch upon these aspects again. So who would like to go through the lines in yellow?
Shall I go? Anybody is there
Yeah,
left out?
yeah. Please, please do.
Okay, okay. Absorb no more in the moment-ridden flux, where mind incessantly drifts as on a raft. Hurried from phenomena to phenomena, he abode at rest in indivisible time.
Ah, these are very relevant lines for us. Absorbed no more in the moment ridden flux. Now, what happens in our day to day life? A life which is mostly lived in an ordinary consciousness. Uh, a thought comes and we are swayed here, another thought comes and we are swayed there, and another feeling comes and we are swayed there, emotion comes and we are swayed there. So, as if what the beautiful imagery that Sri Aurobindo uses here is where the mind incessantly drifts as on a raft. Now, what happens when there is a raft on the surface of a river or an ocean? What happens wherever the waves take it, it will go. There is no mastery. There is no control. If a wave of anger has come, I will go there. If a wave of hate, jealousy, insecurity has come, I will just be thrown away there. If a wave of past memories has come, just thrown again, swayed here and there. So, in normal consciousness that we all experience, each one of us, we are just absorbed in this moment ridden flux. Moment to moment, as the appearances are changes, some thought is happening, then not happening, some feeling is happening, then not happening. We are just swayed here and there, where the mind incessantly drifts as on a raft. And then we wonder what really happened throughout the day. Nothing much happened, but I have been just experiencing being thrown away from one thought to another, one memory to another, one insecurity to another, one feeling to another, one emotion to another, as if there is no control. We are just puppeted around. But this did not happen with Ashwapati here. Absorbed no more in the moment ridden flux, where mind incessantly drifts as on a raft, hurried from phenomenon to phenomenon, appearance after appearance. We are just swayed. A person says something, swayed. A thought appears in the mind, a subtle, now a thought is also an appearance, right? It is a subtle appearance. We cannot see the thought, but we can inwardly see the thought, right? So again, thought is also a phenomenon, right? Yes, Sambhav. So hurried from phenomenon to phenomenon, one thought after another, one experience after another, as if just hurrying one after another experiences. But this
Yeah, that
stopped.
day I shared,
Yes,
no, that like arrows only.
exactly.
Yeah.
You were sharing. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. But owing to the fact that Ashwapati now went beyond this ordinary consciousness, he was able to touch this space, abode, abide. When we say abide, it's like a resting space. Abide by, we are abiding by in our truth. We are resting in our truth. There is no effort there that is required, right? So he abode at rest in indivisible time, a time which cannot be divided. Why it is saying indivisible time? It is the function of time, mind to divide. Mind divides you and me, my body, your body, right? My experiences, your experiences, my rewards, your rewards, my punishments, your punishments. So, the function of the mind is very limiting in nature. It limits, it puts things in categories. It puts even experiences in categories. This is the good experience, this is a bad experience. So, this is how mind functions. Now, owing to the fact that he is now gotten to a space where the mind is absolutely at rest, he is able to experience indivisible time, which can also be referred to as eternity, timelessness, where the time is not divided in past, future, and present. That I am seeking right now, and in future something will happen where my seeking will end. So that kind of thing, he's not absorbed there anymore. This is really very, very beautiful, the space. And this is not something, again, I reiterate again and again, and I will do it, keep on doing it, because uh, this is not a philosophy that we are reading here. These are felt and lived experiences, and they are very much can be a partake of our experiences in this life, right? And only then life actually becomes worth living. Otherwise, life is mostly a chaos and ugliness. This is a movement of life towards beauty. This is a movement of life towards truth, clarity, understanding. Yes. Yeah, who would like to read the next few lines?
Can I do it?
Yeah, yeah, please.
Okay. As if a story long written but acted now. In his present, he held his future and his past, felt in the seconds, the uncounted years, and saw the hours like dots upon a page. An aspect of the unknown reality altered the meaning of the cosmic scene.
Yes. So now in this state of consciousness, he's getting this beautiful larger vision. I think we also, when we were reading the first canto, Symbol Dawn, there also we were reading how Savitri gets a large view when she looks back at at her life, all the experiences connecting their dots and all that. So now he's again owing to the fact that he's seated at such a place, if one can call it a place, that is able to get a whole view, expanded view of life, as if a story long written, but acted now. In his present, he held his future and his past. All together he held, it's uske haath mein, it's like in his hands he is holding the future and the present. This is really very interesting. He held his future and the past, felt in the seconds the uncounted years. In seconds, he felt all those years, not even this lifetime, the previous lifetimes, which have been actually a progression towards this only, which he experiences right now. And again, this is the journey of human evolution. The soul has plunged into the darkness owing to and only to go towards full light of consciousness. So, this is a destiny for each one of us, as if a story written long but acted now. And now it's only a matter of time when it happens for each one of us, when it unfolds for each one of us. It's only a matter of time. As if a story long written but acted now, in his present, he held his future and his past, felt in the seconds the uncounted years, and saw the hours like dots upon a page. Now, beautiful, beautiful imagery. Each hour is appearing like a dot on a page. Whatever written lines that we see on a page, blank page. What happens first is appears a dot. So each experience that we have in our life is a very, very relevant and important experience. Nothing can be called as trivial, that this is not worth it. Now it just depends where we take it from, in what attitude, in what depth do we take that experience, right? And saw the hours like dots upon a page, an aspect of unknown reality altered the meaning of cosmic scene. Now suddenly the glimpse that he is having, Ashwapati, suddenly the whole cosmic scene has changed its meaning for him. Has it changed the meaning for Ashupati now? Owing to this unknown realities aspect that has now been kind of shown to him. Unknown realities aspect. Owing to its presence, owing to Ashupati's consciousness touching this unknown reality. When we talk about scriptures, it says that it cannot be known. Truth, that which truly is, cannot be known by the mind. अज्ञेय कहा जाता है उसको. Because mind, when it turns towards its source, it annihilates. And that's why we say that it cannot be known by the mind. Because it is not कि ego भी रहे और हरि भी मिल जाए. No? So ego is the mind. So mind भी रहे और source भी मिल जाए. That is impossible. When the source is, the mind is not. And when a dissolved mind has tasted the source, it rises up again from those stillnesses, and then it is a transformed mind. It is not the same mind that rises up again. So this aspect of unknown reality, the reality which cannot be known by the mind, altered the meaning of cosmic scene. Now everything has changed its significance. Earlier I may be looking at world like, sorry, who wants to say something? I don't know. Okay, I felt somebody unmuted. Yeah. Uh, usually we may have ideas and conceptions about. Yes, Sambhav, you want to share something?
Yeah. So my doubt is that when one abides in the truth, okay, then the mind, which functions of the mind retain and which functions of the mind do not, and they cease to continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for in day-to-day life, we need mind functions to survive, to plan, to think, to contemplate. But
Yes.
when one abides in truth, then how does the mind behave, or how does it go about when we are in truth?
Yeah, very interesting, Sambhav. So, the mind cannot think about it. हम इस पे बैठ के विचार विमर्श नहीं कर सकते कि क्या होगा जब मैं ट्रुथ से जीना शुरू करूंगा. ये तो फेल्ट एक्सपीरियंस है ना. अब आप पूछो कि क्या होता है जब स्विमिंग करते हैं, है ना. सो इफ यू बिगिन टू आस्क मी क्या होता है जब स्विमिंग करते हैं, कैसा होता है टच और फील वाटर का, सो व्हाट वुड आई से? जंप इनटू द वाटर, राइट, लर्न टू स्विम.
Right.
So this is actually a very practical felt experience.
Right.
हाँ. सो इस पे विचार विमर्श करेंगे तो वो सिर्फ माइंड की डोमेन तक ही रहेगा, थॉट की डोमेन तक ही रहेगा, जो कि बहुत लिमिटेड है.
Okay.
सो बेटर practical first hand experiences, and then obviously once
Right.
we have touched those depths, then the mind rises up again from those depths, and then the mind can almost hint towards those depths, है ना. उसकी बात करी जा
Okay.
सकती है. जैसे कि एक स्विमिंग का जो ट्रेनर है, हाँ, वो क्या करता है, वो
Right.
क्योंकि वो पानी को अच्छे से जानता है, he can talk things about water and
Right.
instruct you in a way so that you learn really how to be with water.
Right.
Yeah, so this is how I would kind of approach it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Now the whole meaning of the cosmic scene is altered. So, as I was sharing, that we may think that God is cruel, why good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, and all that, all the ideas that we have in our head about world and its manifestation, all the meanings altered owing to this aspect of grace, the unknown reality. Hmm? Yeah. Suddenly, as if a new vast wisdom kind of opened in front of Ashupati, owing to the fact and owing to this, his whole understanding of the cosmic scene changed. It was not a mind level understanding. It was a direct knowing, direct perception. Yes. Who would like to go through the yellow lines?
This huge material universe became a small result of a stupendous force, overtaking the moment the eternal ray illumined that which never yet was made.
Yeah. Now, from this stance of being in expanded consciousness, from this stance, knowing himself as this witnessing presence, this huge material universe, अगर आप देखें हमारे जीवन में, so many things become so important in our life just because society has said so. The stakes become too high. What if I am divorced? Oh my god, what will the people say about me? What if this happens? What will the people? So all the material manifestation of the universe, it has a very high stake for us. We give it too much of importance. But from this standpoint where now Ashupati is standing, this huge material universe which appears so massive and humongous and overwhelming, this just appeared a small result of a stupendous force, a very as if a tip of an iceberg of the force, the consciousness acting behind all the creation. So he was able to see that this huge material manifestation is nothing but a small dot in front of that stupendous force. And if we look at our lives, half of our life, is gone in uh, what people are thinking about me, what society will think about me, what if I fail, all these kind of things. They become too important and almost a burden on our head. Half of most of our lifetime is gone just in trying to resolve these issues, while this became just a dot, a small result of a stupendous force. Overtaking the moment, the eternal ray illumined that which never yet was made. Why he saw this material universe as a dot, a small result of the stupendous force? Why? Because when the eternal ray of consciousness shone and showed Ashupati that what really is the aukat almost of material universe in front of that force, overtaking the moment was overtaken by this eternal light, the ray of illumination. Overtaking the moment, the eternal ray illumined that which never yet was made. So it exposed a vast, infinite area, infinite field of possibilities which are yet unmanifested in nature. So material universe is the part which is manifested, which is in creation. We can see that, right? We can perceive that, we can sense that. And yet he was able to see all that which is yet unmanifested, which is not yet manifested, but is the potential. The unknown is pregnant with that potential, the vast infinite potential of things yet to be. And in front of those, the huge, so-called huge material universe appeared like a small result of the stupendous force. Hmm? Exactly, yes. Yeah. Yes. This is very interesting because I heard that somewhere, somebody was sharing that in one of the classes, when you really felt really too overwhelmed, when your problem appears too big to you, then what you can do is, or try visualizing, is that go far away from Earth. Imagine that you are going into the space from Earth. You're sitting in Delhi and you're imagining far away, far away, far away. And then from, go out and out and out. And from maybe really kind of far away, you look at your problem. And in front of that magnanimity, your problem would not appear that big as it appears to you right now. So somebody was sharing this and it just kind of came to me again. Yeah. Yes. So who would like to read the lines in green?
Lay down in a mighty voicelessness, the toiling
Down
thinker.
in a mighty voicelessness. The toiling thinker widened and grew still. Wisdom transcendent touched his quivering heart. His soul could sail beyond thought's luminous bar. Mind screened no more, the shoreless infinite.
Yeah, thank you, Sambhav. Taru, would you like to just go over the lines again?
I'll read the next one, that's all right?
No, that's
Yeah.
okay. Just go over.
Okay. God lay down in a mighty voicelessness, the toiling thinker widened and grew still. Wisdom transcendent touched his quivering heart. His soul could sail beyond thought's luminous bar. Mind screened no more the shoreless infinite.
Yeah. So the first line, it says, thought lay down in a mighty voicelessness. If we look at our day to day life, our thoughts are not voiceless. They are always chattering, right? They're never at rest. Either I'm thinking about my own image or somebody else, what I think about that person, or what will my life be in future, what is my life in present, what was it in the past, all that just goes on and on incessantly, right? But in this space which Ashwati is experiencing right now, thought lay down, it is kind of resting now. Okay, lay down in a mighty voicelessness. The thought is not required here. There is no need for the thought. And also, not only the need, the the immovable peace here is so strong, so powerful, that it almost just lays down as if kind of surrendering in a mighty voicelessness. The toiling thinker. Now, this is a reference to the mind. Mind is always struggling, it's always trying to make sense of things. Why this happened, why that happened, why that person that said that thing, and why this happened in my life, what is the significance of that. So the mind is always trying to make sense of things. It is always toiling, right? The toiling thinker, the mind, widened and grew still. There is no need for the mind to go on an incessant loop of thinking. And here, when the mind grows still, it expands, it widens, because thought is the boundary of the mind. Thought are the walls of the mind. If thought is not, the mind feels this wideness. Thought lay down in a mighty voicelessness. The toiling thinker widened and grew still. Wisdom transcendent touched his quivering heart. Now, in the middle of these happenings, when the mind is silent, it's almost imagine that there is a humongous flow of Ganges that wants to pour into you. Now, if you are not empty, how would the Ganges pour into you? So the emptiness, the stillness of the mind is of supreme importance if the wisdom has to dawn upon in my being. Without stillness, I can just go on blabbering and blabbering, and I will never find rest. So, a still mind, a calm mind, a peaceful mind is prerequisite for the consciousness to grow. Wisdom transcendent, now when the mind is widened and still, wisdom transcendent touched his quivering heart. Otherwise, even when the heart is being touched, one is not even aware. Many a times our hearts are touched deeply with some truth, but we are not aware because the mind goes on chattering and chattering and chattering and blabbering about what it has read in the past and what is that it knows, and what it thinks about the whole thing. The chatter is incessant. So in this absence of this incessant chatter, it was able to touch the quivering heart, the wisdom transcendent, the supreme wisdom. His soul could sail beyond thought's luminous bar. Now, thought is important. Thought helps us. Thought has, allowed us to come this way, this far. So, thought is not bad per se, but thought has its own limit. Like a flute can play certain things, and a piano can play certain other things, right? Now there is nothing bad about either the flute or the piano. They have their limits, right? So thought has its own limits, and that's why it is called as luminous bar. Bar, it's like a wall, it's like a obstruction, but a luminous bar. It's light. It's not darkness. We are able to, man is a thinking being, and we call, it's like a evolution step ahead from plants, animals, dinosaurs, etc., etc. So thought is a helper, and yet thought also becomes a bar when we walk on this path of surrender. So now his soul, as if it was a ship, could sail beyond thought's luminous bar. So imagine that there is a ship that is standing at the harbor, and now once you remove that rope tied to the ship, it is ready to sail beyond that bar which was stopping it on the harbor. It was kind of parked there, right? So now his soul could sail beyond the realms of the mind, going beyond mind, traveling beyond thought. And for the normal consciousness, for the ordinary consciousness, we think that what will happen if thought is not there? And the mind, it's okay for the mind to be scared. Why? Because the mind has no experience of what to do if thought is not there, right? And that is why the scare is there, because we have just been living from a mental level all the time. We have never known the depths of heart. And that's why Kabir says, पोथी पढ़ पढ़ जग मुआ पंडित भया न कोय ढाई आखर प्रेम के पढ़े सो पंडित होए. So our situation is like we have read 10,000 books, and yet we have not touched even a drop or an ounce of love. And without love, no progression, no evolution can happen. So this is love. His soul can now expand beyond the thought's luminous bar. Mind screened no more the shoreless infinite. Now this is really also very beautiful. Why? Because as if the mind is a screen which is veiling the infinite. The thought is a screen which is veiling the infinite, as if ki parda pada hua hai. Infinite is right there, right here, but it cannot be seen, it cannot be perceived or touched. Why? Because of the veil of the mind. Mind now not anymore was able to screen, was not able to veil the shoreless infinite. He could grow into the wideness of the infinite. He could see beyond, horizons. in that space where the thought was not. Thought lay down in a mighty voicelessness. And when, and in the coming lines we will touch upon that, when we touch these depths in our own self, when we touch these stillnesses, calm, and vastness in our own self, which are available to each one of us, when mind rises again from those depths, it's a transformed mind. It is not the same mind. It's not a vulgar mind. It's a mind which is carrying the truth with itself and not living for falsehood. That is the beauty of these dips in the holy Ganges. The Ganges is right here in within our being. As Kabir also says, that here in this being you will find the holy waters. And here, take the dip here, right here. Yeah, so anything on these lines? Anyone?
Yeah, I just want to say it's like it's so beautiful that, and it's like painful at the same time. Like the beauty is like, kind of, I don't know how to express it. And one more thing, like, I had a small NDE experience. So after that, I feel a certain stillness.
Yeah,
It-
yeah,
And I never realized what that meant. It's like, obviously, it's like very grounding.
yeah,
And it was just like I can feel, yes, there's some stillness that came down with me. But when I'm reading this, like even the last time and this time, like
yeah,
the importance of that stillness that was,
yeah.
that was, I mean, I was blessed with. It
Yes,
can,
yes,
it's like, how much possibility has opened up because of that stillness, that
totally. Yeah,
so just like the words are just, the choice of things like that mighty voicelessness.
yeah,
Like one can never logically put these things together, like you keep saying it's a lived experience because
mm,
otherwise this is not something one can think of, right? How
exactly.
can
Yeah,
there be a mighty voicelessness? And when you read it, it resonates, something inside
yeah,
says, yes, yes, like voicelessness
yes,
is mighty, pain is beautiful.
yeah,
So again, like again and again, it has to be lived.
yeah,
It has to be from the truth. Otherwise, it would not be so omnipresent and I don't know, felt so,
yeah,
kind of widely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. ऐसा लगता है, in we are all in most part of our lives, we are in a seeking to become something. We are in a horde, in a rush to be something, to do something good, and in that we escape seeing this silence in the middle of our being. And as Kabir also says again and again repeatedly in many many couplets, Kabir ji says that it's right here, it's right here, where do you go looking, where do you go looking? So it's as if that this vital energy, the vital life force in us, it almost propels us to go outside. And only after many many years of realizing that my running around has not been really helping me much, so what is it that I am missing? One really grounds down and humbles down, and one finds that stillness, that calm, the peace and poise uh, in the middle of all the happenings. And it was never absent, but I was not even home to notice it, because I was always trying to be something, I was always trying to become something, to hold on to something, to achieve something. And in that wanting, I just forever was escaping this which was right here present with me all the time. So this almost has to become, as Taru was sharing, our felt experience. And those of us who have been through such so-called traumatic tragedy or painful experiences, which has given them a taste of stillness and calm, I think those are really blessed moments of grace, full of grace. Again, face values deceive. So people may think that what a tragedy that happened, right? But what it gave you, only you know. So that is what is the beauty of painful and experiences full of challenge and difficulty, that they show us the presence of uh, this stillness and calm in the middle of all confusion in our life. And once we have tasted that, only once, it can become our life slowly. So that's where the kind of constant sadhana has to be there, that yes, you have been given the taste. Now, what would you do? Would you still keep on ignoring it, or would you make it your life? That is our task, that is our sadhana. Yeah. Across a void, I think this has to be read, right? Yeah, who would like to read? Yeah, Aradhana ji, are you
Yeah,
there?
let her read. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, are you speaking, Aradhana? You are on mute if you are speaking.
No, I thought Chitra ji starting. That's
अच्छा
why
अच्छा
I
आपका
messed
आप
up.
बोलो. हाँ हाँ.
Okay. Across a void, retreating sky, he glimpsed through a last glimmer and drift of vanishing stars, the superconscious realm of motionless peace, where judgment ceases and the word is mute, and the unconceived lies pathless and alone. There came not form or any mounting voice. There only were silence and absolute. Very beautiful lines, Monica.
Yeah. Yes. Across a void, retreating sky, he glimpsed. So he was able to get a glimpse of. He glimpsed through a last glimmer and drift of vanishing stars. Now, when I was going through research on these lines, so it was given that uh, this line, the second line, through a last glimmer and drift of vanishing stars, has been inspired by Kalidas, poetry by Kalidas, where he uses this imagery that in the morning light, when dawn appears, the stars almost vanish in front of that dawn or the light, as if they just kind of really slowly, gradually disappear, vanish. So this has been taken up by Sri Aurobindo, inspired by that poetry by Kalidas. So across a void, retreating sky, he glimpsed through a last glimmer and drift of vanishing stars. And what was the glimpse that he was given? The superconscient realms of motionless peace. Now look at this things put together, motionless peace. Even if you read these two words together, they just take you somewhere, as if they do something magical to you. Motionless peace. That is the glimpse that he got. Super conscient, far, far, far above than our ordinary consciousness, where we are acting mostly from thought or feelings, sensations, perceptions, always basing and choosing our life's decisions on those aspects, limiting aspects. So now, owing to the fact that he's been experiencing this source or the stillness of the source, he now got this glimpse of superconscient realms of motionless peace. Nothing is moving there. There is no subtle movement even there. No movement is there. You know, first we come across movements which is outer in nature, like a car is moving, sun is going up and down, these kind of things are happening. And then the movement that we feel within the being, right? The movement of thought, the movement of stories in our head, the movement of sense perceptions, the movement of feelings, emotions. These are subtle movements. Now, in this realm of superconscious realm, there is motionless peace where judgment ceases. Judgment is a function of mind. Mind judges, right? This is good for me, this is bad for me, I like this, I don't like this, I like this person, I don't like this person. This is judgment, right? Now, owing to the fact that the mind is now at rest in its source, judgment is not there. It ceases to be. It is not even required because there is direct shining of the truth. Right? Direct shining of the truth, direct shining of knowledge, supreme knowledge, where judgment ceases and the word is mute. There is no need of speech there. Nothing needs to be expressed. All is just known by direct experience. When you are in the water, you know how the water feels. You know how it is to be in the water. Only you know. You can give hints and clues about what it is to be like in the water. But even those words are almost cannot really tell the experience, absolute experience. They are just hinters and pointers. So the word is not necessary here. The speech is not necessary here. The expression is not necessary here in this realm of motionless peace. And the unconceived, the one who cannot be conceived, the one who the mind cannot even think of it, the one which is the origin of the mind, the unconceived lies pathless and alone. Pathless. Truth is a pathless path. We have heard, right? There is no path that you can take towards truth. It's a pathless path. All your preconceptions would be shattered, would be broken down to ashes. And that is truth. That is the beauty and fairiness of truth. The unconceived lies pathless and alone. There is this song, the bhajan by Kabir ji, Avduta, Avduta, Yugan Yugan Ham Yogi. So it's a beautiful song, and the lines that it says that Ave na jave, mite na kabhu. Neither do I come nor do I go. Sab thor jamaat hamari jamaat. Wherever you see the play, it is my play. I do the play. I am in everyone and everyone is in me. There is only me all alone. So this is I found it exactly kind of resonating with these words when it says, the unconceived lies pathless and all alone. There is nothing but the unconceived. All the words that appears to be is a manifestation of that unconceived only. It's a play in the water, of the water, by the water, with the water. So we are drenched in that truth, but we are so obscured with our sense perceptions that we fail to see that. And that is why Kabir says that pani mein meen pyasi. We are drenched, wet in that absolute truth, and yet we are thirsty. We are looking for it. This is the paradox. This is the illusion. And then in the last paragraph of this song, it says, Kahe Kabira, suno bhai sadho, na hi na koi ichha, apni madi mein aap मैं डोलूं, खेलूं सहज स्व इच्छा. So I play out of my own delight, and I play within myself, with myself. Now, when we talk about, experiences that why did that bad happen to that person and not to some bad fellow, etc., etc., it's the play of the divine. The divine is doing all these so-called tortures to himself. Where do we come in between? But the moment meanness rises, that how could the divine do this to me? There is a separation that we make. There is me and then there is divine. And there we forever keep on struggling and suffering. But if we see it as the play of the divine and the divine doing all the things to himself, then we can see it like a play. But often we are not able to, owing to the fact that we are divided in the mind. Thought comes into the being and it says, there is some other god and there is some other separate personality called you who is really limited, and then there is God who does things onto you, right? So when this separation comes into picture, uh, our experience becomes really ugly, right? We think of God as something cruel, or whatever we may have images about him. And he is saying here, it's said that it is right here. The unconceived lies pathless and alone. All that is there is the unconceived. There came not form or any mounting voice. So in this domain, there was no need of any appearance to be there. Form. The forms were not needed here. And neither do any need of voice, speech, right? There came not form or any mounting voice. There only were silence and the absolute. Nothing else except from that silence and absolute exists. Nothing else but that. Now, if we begin to live a life from that zone, it cannot be an ugly life. It is impossible that it is an ugly life. The very fact that our society at the moment we see most ugliness in the society and not much of beauty is the fact that we don't even give ourselves a pause, a chance to dip ourselves in this holy water, which is right here in our being. This is what Kabir says, Ram Ras. This is the Ram Ras. This is when Kabir says, Ganga is in you. You don't have to go anywhere. Dip yourself. Take frequent dips in those waters in your being. Jin khoja tin paiya gehre pani pet. This is the gehra pani. The one who started to found in the depths of the waters. The body being 90% water. This is the depth. If it has to be found, it will be found right here. Right? This is the power, of these words, this illuminating words. And then the last lines which we are going to read today, I think after that we'll just end. They just tell that when the mind arises out of those stillnesses, it carries the light of truth with itself. Now it is not plunged into obscurity and ignorance and falsehood of the ego. Now the mind is not acting for the ego in the service of the ego. Now the mind who is taking frequent dips in these waters, in the holy waters of the being, that mind will for sure carry the light of truth in all the action, all the words, all the behaviors in day to day life. This is the power of truth. And that is why I was sharing earlier, this has to be felt, this has to be lived. We cannot just talk about it. People have been talking for several years now. What has changed really in society? So we have to take the plunge. Jin khoja tin paiya, gehre pani pait, मैं बपुरा भूपंडरा रहा किनारे बैठ. So don't just sit on the shores and think about it or philosophize about it. Take the plunge. Know it for yourself what it is. Make it your life. And for that one has to be uh, in love with this path. Otherwise, if we are just doing it out of our selfish motives, we cannot really go too far. We'll be scared and we'll just come back or sit on the shore and philosophize. Right? So just last few lines I'll just take up. Sambhav, would you like to read these last few lines?
Sure.
Yeah.
Out of that stillness, mind newborn arose and woke to truths once inexpressible, and forms appeared dumbly significant. A seeing thought, a self-revealing voice. He knew the source from which his spirit movement was married to the immobile vast. He plunged his roots into the infinite. He based his life upon eternity.
Thank you. Yeah. Now, this is what I was sharing earlier. Now, after the dip in this Ganges, after the dip in the sacred depths of our being, out of that stillness, mind newborn arose. Now, this is what masters and mystics, when they say, Krishnamurti says, Osho says, uh, all the masters that you may have heard, they say that, uh, be new each moment. Die to each moment and be new each moment. Be born anew each moment. Now, how to do that? We have no idea. We have no clue. How to be new each moment? We cannot be new each moment if we are living by the mind, because mind is time. Mind is the past and the present and the future. So, as long as I am of the mind, living for the mind, as the mind, by the mind, it is not a possibility for me to live a new life each moment. It is impossible, because the mind will keep on pulling me to either the past, the future, or it will regurgitate events. Whatever has happened, it will keep on regurgitating it, ruminating about it. And that's why we feel this rottenness in the being when we do that, right? Or worrying about the future, etc., etc. Now, when the mind dips itself in this source, only then, when the mind now arises out of that dip, the mind is newborn. It is not a mind of the past. It is not a mind of things that have already happened. It is not a mind that is touched. It is an untouched, fresh, and supple mind. This is what Sri Aurobindo and Mother mean by suppleness of the mind, plasticity of the mind, flexibility of the mind, wideness of the mind. Without this holy dip, it cannot be a possibility. Out of that stillness, mind, newborn, a newborn, look at a newborn. You will be totally infatuated, even though for those people who are not really, baby loving per se. They cannot stop being attracted by the enchantment of a newborn. Newborn, extremely supple, rich, full of aliveness, intensity, no rottenness in the being, full of life. That is what is mind newborn arose. And woke to truths once inexpressible. Now, this mind, which is now newborn, it can wake up to the truths which so far have been inexpressible by the rotten quality of the mind. This mind, owing to the fact that it has dipped itself in the truths of the being, the depth and stillness of the being, it is carrying the light of the truth, which so far was inexpressible. So even the words that come through this mind, even the thoughts that arise out of this mind now, will be able to hint you towards clarity, understanding, and peace. This is the quality of this mind. It's a transformed mind, and this has to happen each moment. Each moment. It's not that once done you are invincible and nothing. The mind cannot rot. Mind has an extremely, a remarkable capacity to rot. It's almost like a phoenix, as if rises from the ashes. So you may think that my mind is fresh now. But sorry, Kabir, yes, Aradhana ji, sure. So Kabir says, "Man ko mritak jaan ke mat kije vishwas." So don't think that now you have once experienced that your mind is silent, dead, or peaceful. So you can say, "My mind is silent, peaceful, and whatever, It is not like that. It cannot be taken along with arrogance. It has to be a continued experience in life. साधना कभी भी रुकती नहीं है. Sadhana can just begin. It can never stop. Right? So this mind woke up to truths once inexpressible. Now it was able to express the light and truth. And forms appeared. Now the forms which were earlier not necessary, not there, now the forms appeared. Now what are the forms? The subtle forms are feelings, emotions, thoughts, sense perceptions. These are the subtle forms. So even they now will respond sensitively towards truth, the light of truth. They will not be responding or being a servant to falsehood now. Right? And again, this is whenever I say now, it means only it refers to that moment. Right? In any moment, I can again slip, and the mind can again bring up the past and live from images and philosophies. Right? So this is a moment to moment happening. Now forms appeared dumbly significant. They are not very expressive and loudly speaking forms, but they have a lot of significance. They're not really very loud. That's why the word dumb here. But they are very rich in their content. They are very significant appearances. A seeing thought, a self-revealing voice. These are the forms that appear. What appeared? A seeing thought. A thought which is now full of the light of clarity and understanding. Now that appeared in the being. Earlier, my thoughts were really serving the ego, so they were not really much of use, right? Most of the time. But now, owing to the fact that they have dipped again and again in these waters, it is full of this clarity, this thought, the same thought, similar thoughts. We cannot say thought is bad or good or whatever. Thought has its own requirement in this world, right? But now the quality of thought, the thought is now a servant of truth. It's not serving falsehood. A self-revealing voice, a voice whenever it speaks, it reveals something beyond to whoever listens to it. A self-revealing voice. That is the potency of the dip in this holy Ganges. And this is a birthright, I would say, for each one of us. It's not a few uh, elite ones could have these experiences and live from there. I think it is a responsibility almost. Because if we are to create a society which is beautiful and sensitive and feeling, really truly feeling and caring for each other, then if uh, each one of us does not undergo this transformation, it is impossible to have a society which is sensitive. Our society will keep on being numb and uncaring. He knew the source from which his spirit came. Now, owing to this direct experience, he knew the source. He knew the source from which his spirit came. Movement was married to the immobile vast. Now he saw that how, owing to the fact that stillness is the base of all movement, immutable peace is the base of all manifestation, how there is a marriage of Shiva and Shakti. Movement, nature, Prakriti is married to the immobile vast, that which can never ever move or be touched, is married to that which only moves. Such beautiful paradox, truth. He plunged his roots into the infinite. How beautiful. How beautiful. He plunged his roots into the infinite. Usually our roots remain in the movement, कुछ हिलाता है हम हिल जाते हैं. Anybody says something, we are just swayed really badly. Just that just tells me that my roots are mostly in the finite, in the limited, and the limited is always changing. The limited is appearances, that is always changing. So my roots are mostly in the changing, and that is why I suffer. Now, owing to the fact of all these experiences that he went through, he knowingly plunged his roots. He knew where he has to be, plunged his roots into the infinite. He now based his life upon eternity. Beautiful. We base our lives on sense perceptions, thoughts, feelings, all that comes and goes. My image is about myself, what people think about me. We base our life on that. Now he could have the courage to base his life upon eternity, upon timelessness, upon that which never changes, never moves, never undergoes any wound at all. Now can be a life worth living. And this is not the end of life. It seems so beautiful, it appears, और क्या चाहिए जिंदगी में. This is the beginning of life divine. This is how mind, the vital and the physical, will become instruments of the truth. Before this, the mind, vital and physical, will always be fighting with each other. That is what we experience also many times. But after this, there is so much of conviction after these continuous dips in this waters of our own peace and truth, that there is so much of clarity and understanding that yes, only this can be the way, there cannot be any other way. So only after this conviction can the mind, the emotions, feelings, and the physical become a servant of truth and not of ego. That is the importance of this. Otherwise, a whole lifetime can be just lived in service of a ego. And again, that is again part of our journey. Only when we do that, we see the importance of maybe coming out of that. Yeah. So any remarks here? Otherwise, I'm ready to close. Yeah.
I have something to say.
Yes. Yes.
So, we were talking about how society at large needs to be reformed in a way that they come to truth. But there's so much ignorance that we see around, and there's a lack of education and there's lack of understanding of language even, which will allow them to absorb something new. So the task is humongous, and it's an uphill task, I believe, for the people who have some taste of the truth.
हम्म. या संभव, लेकिन मुझे लगता है पता है देखो, चैरिटी बिगिंस एट होम, राइट? So
Mm-hmm.
when I have myself not become a flower,
Mm-hmm.
how can I expect that the fragrance spreads everywhere? है ना?
Right.
So I think होता क्या है कि when we are on this path and we are just so dedicated to our own being a flower, blossoming of our own
Mm-hmm.
truth and being, owing to just
Mm-hmm.
our presence, things
Mm.
begin to transform.
Right. That is true.
Yeah, so this has to be, taken into account for each one of us, that we have to continue working on ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and as a side effect of it, all that transformation
Right.
will happen. So that transformation will be a side effect. It will not be a
Right.
direct hit that I went out in the society today and I want to transform. That, like that, it is not going to happen ever, ever.
Right.
But if
It
there are
will.
more and more of flowers around, then the fragrance is sure to spread. Yes, please say. Yeah.
That's okay. Nothing to say.
Yeah.
Mm.
I also have something to share based
Yes.
on the last line. You
Yeah.
know how
They say that Yudhishthir, all the five Pandavas, when they were finally going to the Himalayas to basically kind of, when they realize it's their end time and they want to go there and stuff, and slowly all of them left the body one after the other. So they say that there was this, I don't know, god or Daksh, like a person called Daksh, a god called Daksh. He came and he asked Yudhishthir, what is the strangest thing that you saw in the world? And he said, "Okay, it is that we see people dying, and yet we believe that we are stable, we will be here forever." So basically जैसे अब तीन चीज़ों पे dependent हैं बस, तो जैसे like the time, the location, the place, and materialism. And once when you see somebody has left the body, he's out of the time zone, he's out of the location thing, है ना, and he has left his body as well. And yet we want to stand where we are standing in time, in place, and in
Beautiful.
with the material. So and
Beautiful.
uske comparison mein you're basing your life upon eternity, right? Like the contradiction, not the contradiction, the enormity of what is
Enormity
our
of, yeah,
possibility,
yeah,
of our existence, and where we choose to be, because it just एक तो कलेक्टिव हो गया और easier हो गया, और है ना, मतलब but क्या
yeah,
possibility है, it's just what it touches, like most of the lines here they touch,
yeah,
it's just like, yeah,
yeah.
life
Thank you.
divine.
Beautiful. Yes, yes.
Again, beautiful lines, Monica. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
really
this line
beautiful,
also,
Chitraji.
yeah, when I'm going through these lines also, it feels like, yeah, it is aushadam for thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And also this movement was married to the immobile was, that lines reminded me of that Isha Upanishad, one mantra is there.
Yeah.
Tate jadi, tannai jadi. That
Mm.
moves and that moves not. Wonderfully, he brought this here
Beautiful,
actually.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Very
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That's it.
everyone. Thank you
Yeah.
for joining. Yeah,
Yeah.
bye-bye.